In 1925, Paris was drowning in its own glamour. The streets sparkled with art, music, and endless champagne. But beneath the glittering surface, the Eiffel Tower was a disaster. It was rusty, creaky, and desperately expensive to maintain. The French government secretly wanted it gone, but they were far too embarrassed to admit it. They hoped nobody would notice. Then a man named Victor Lustig arrived in Paris. He wasn't an engineer or a politician. He was a con artist, possibly the most charming one in history. He spoke 5 languages perfectly. He dressed like a millionaire. He had perfect manners. Most importantly, he understood something that most people don't. People will believe anything if you say it with enough confidence. Lustig had already scammed his way across Europe and America. But he was bored with small tricks. He wanted something legendary. One morning, he opened a newspaper and read about the Eiffel Tower's problems. The government wanted to scrap it. They just didn't have the courage. Lustig smiled and said to himself, "I will sell it." He knew he couldn't do it alone. So he hired a professional forger to create fake government documents. He bought fancy paper and printed official-looking letterheads. For the official government seal, he didn't waste money on a real stamp. He carved one out of a potato. A simple potato from a Paris market. It worked perfectly. Lustig then sent letters to 5 of the richest scrap metal dealers in Paris. He invited them to a secret meeting at the Hôtel de Crillon, the most luxurious hotel in the city. It was a place where kings and ambassadors stayed. Lustig knew that nobody would question his authority if he held the meeting there. The setting was everything. On the day of the meeting, Lustig arrived in a chauffeured limousine. His suit was immaculate. He greeted each dealer with a warm smile and a firm handshake. Then he apologized for all the secrecy. "Gentlemen," he began, his voice calm and serious, "the French government has decided to sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap. But the public must not know. There would be riots." He handed each dealer a thick folder stamped with red letters, classified. Inside, they found official-looking permits, detailed engineering reports, and a breakdown of the tower's scrap value. The numbers were enormous. 7,000 tons of iron, worth a fortune. Each dealer stared at the documents and saw only dollar signs. One dealer raised his hand nervously. "Sir, who exactly are you? And why is a postal official selling the Eiffel Tower?" Lustig smiled with practiced warmth. He introduced himself as the Deputy Director of the Ministry of Postal Services, a title he invented on the spot. It didn't exist. But it sounded official. That was all that mattered. Then Lustig leaned in and whispered the final lie. "The government is completely bankrupt. We need to sell the tower quietly to avoid a national scandal. But we can only work with one buyer. Just one. And we need your decision within 48 hours." He watched their eyes widen. They were hooked. The pressure worked perfectly. Now the 5 dealers weren't just interested, they were competing. Each one wanted to be the chosen buyer. Lustig watched them bid higher and higher, driving up the price without saying a word. He sat back, smiling, and let the offers rise naturally. He didn't even need to negotiate. After the meeting, Lustig pulled the highest bidder, a man named André Poisson, aside for a private conversation. Poisson was wealthy, but insecure. He desperately wanted to impress his wealthy friends and business partners. Lustig had studied him carefully and knew exactly which buttons to push. And he was about to push them hard. Lustig lowered his voice and explained that the government needed a special commission to secure the deal. He wasn't asking for a bribe, of course. It was just a small formality, a gift to the right people. Poisson didn't hesitate. He pulled out a thick envelope stuffed with cash and handed it over without blinking. A few days later, Poisson transferred the full payment to Lustig's bank account. Then Lustig did what he did best. He vanished. He took a train to the French countryside, then another to Switzerland, then another to Italy. He never looked back. Poisson never reported the crime. He was too ashamed. He had been scammed by a man who used a potato stamp. Lustig spent the next few months living like royalty on the French Riviera. He drank expensive wine, stayed in the finest hotels, and laughed about his greatest triumph. He had sold the Eiffel Tower to a man who never even asked to see it. But Lustig wasn't satisfied. He was greedy, and had a twisted sense of humor. 6 weeks later, Lustig walked back into Paris. He hadn't changed his appearance or even his clothes. He called the same 5 scrap metal dealers and introduced himself again. "Gentlemen," he said calmly, "I am so sorry for the confusion. The government has changed its mind. The tower is for sale once more." He didn't even use a fake name. But this time, something was different. The first scam had made it onto a police report, not because of Poisson, but because his business partner had grown suspicious. Word had spread among the dealers. When Lustig called, they didn't reach for their checkbooks. They reached for their telephones. And they called the police. Lustig barely escaped. He jumped off a hotel balcony, landed on a parked car, and ran through the narrow streets of Paris. He vanished into the underground metro system and never returned to the city. He had almost been caught, but he was already a legend. He had sold the Eiffel Tower not once, but twice. Almost. That was enough. Lustig wasn't just a con artist. He was a philosopher of sorts. He believed that people don't want the truth, they want a good story. And he was absolutely right. Poisson never went to the police. He went home and told his wife he almost bought the Eiffel Tower. They both laughed about it. He just couldn't admit he had been fooled. Victor Lustig was eventually caught in 1935 by the FBI in the United States, not for the Eiffel Tower, but for counterfeiting American currency. He was sentenced to 20 years in Alcatraz, America's most infamous prison. He escaped once. They brought him back. He died there in 1947 of pneumonia. He was 67 years old. But his legend lives on. The Eiffel Tower still stands in Paris today, not because of politicians, but because nobody could ever believe that someone actually sold it. Twice. So next time you see a photo of Paris, remember, it's not just a monument. It's the world's greatest real estate joke. And Victor Lustig? He didn't sell the tower. He sold the dream.